forward to the cloud. Okay, we are currently recording. And I'm going to try to make this speaker view, which should only be you. And I'm going to put myself on mute occasionally so I don't interfere with the conversation. I want to thank everybody for coming. For the people who are home, I don't need necessarily to share my screen, but I'll do it for this moment. I don't usually do this. But we're blessed here at York College of Pennsylvania to have somebody as educated and as well-versed in the broadcast, television, video, filmmaking industry as Carl to come in. Carl runs a business that does a whole variety of things, of doing installs of all sorts of telecommunications at every level for every kind of corporate client, from schools like ours to the United States government. So I did post the site. He does have a website, and it's public. So I post that site so you can take a look at some of the things he does. And he's highly educated, on top of his game. I had the pleasure of working with him on a project or two. And he's been kind enough to give me opportunities. And I'll tell you, you can't work for a nicer guy, in that what you find is that the opportunity is being presented to somebody that does high-end television work on as much of the consistent basis as he does. You'll find that there's so many things happening. He knows so much about so many things. It's hard to ask the first question, which is, what's it like transitioning from the old media that he's accustomed to what's happening today? What are the differences between yesterday and today? So I'm gonna let Carl take it over and give you some insight into who he is, what it means to do the kind of work he does. And we are going to look for some questions. Hopefully some of you have some questions for a broadcast television video engineer. So Carl, I appreciate your time. The show is yours.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you for having me. Everyone, it's a pleasure to be here today. A little quick background for you as we're looking at both old technology, but mostly newer technology, new media. I've been in media since about 1978. I've been working in media full time since 1987. That goes back a lot of years. I'm not even going to keep track of how many that is. And I'm going to avoid using the word old, but I've heard that referred to me. At the same time, yes, as Craig led in with, I do work in a variety of areas. I'm actually sitting in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia today, and will be my final stop tonight is Harrisburg, where I'll be working in a corporate conference room tomorrow, just doing a quick technical review and refresh of one of your Capitol's conference rooms across the street from there, doing some lobbying and other work. I honestly pay no attention to it. I just paid attention that they've got monitors and cameras. But last week I was at FEMA, Federal Emergency Management in Washington, DC. This week I've been working at an ABC TV station here in West Virginia. And on Friday I'll be up in New York working on a television group called Sports Grid, and we'll get to them in a moment. They're probably some of my largest variety of new media that I've got out there, especially in one given place. But you'll find new media everywhere we go. New media to me doesn't just mean internet and cell phones. There's a lot of technology behind that ends up at cell phones, ends up on YouTube. But the platforms are so much larger than that. Anyone who has a smart TV at home, everyone who watches Netflix, watches your Disney Plus, is watching a form of new media. Those are new media distribution platforms. New media creation platforms and capturing is everything between capturing live streams from your vMix to even like we're doing now with a Zoom call. You think Zoom is a broadcast media. And I'm going to point out that in your world of live news right now, upwards of 20% of all interviews are taking place on some form of Zoom, Teams, other platform as such. It's being done on everything between laptops to desktop computers to cell phones. But at the same time, what was a traditional camera field operation now runs over products like LiveView and Dejaro, which is doing a cellular 4G, 5G bonded high-speed data connection. And while there was still a camera out in the field, that's being brought back via internet. Stepping beyond the capture side, moving beyond the distribution side is the management aspects of new media. And I'm hoping to have an opportunity to talk a little bit further on each of these as a topic for you, and even get you, if I end up sharing my screen, I'll give you some quick displays of what's out there, of what's running. I believe, Craig, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you do have a vMix platform over in one of your studios, correct?
That is correct. Some of the students that are on Zoom with you today are actually in the class that's considered our singular multicam and live stream class. And the production bot we have is running vMix, which is a software package to allow us to switch between cameras and do live streaming. Yes, sir.
I've got a number of clients using vMix. I've got a number of clients using Wirecast as well. I've got a number that are using larger platforms, more dedicated platforms from groups like Ross, Imagine, Evertz as well. Those are more difficult to demonstrate over a Zoom call, but certainly the vMix and the Wirecast platforms, live operations, we might pop in and take a quick look at some of the operations and studios that I have going on there. Likewise, one of the biggest things that's changed with media in general as we talk about new, and it's just stretching even beyond what is media, is the size and operation of what it takes to accomplish it. Craig, as you mentioned, you've got a unit called a production bot. It is nothing more than what looks like a briefcase, a small desktop computer unit, and it houses the software to broadcast an entire show, your cameras, your graphics, your functionality, operations that, as we look at in contrast to the old media, standard control room used to have 3, 6, 12 people in operation doing everything between graphics playback, technical directing, actual show director, tape record, camera control. We can keep going on, teleprompter. So much of that has been brought down with these new computer technologies into single platform, single user operations. And yeah, my ABC affiliate down here in West Virginia, it's a small market. It's a market 166, which puts it in the very small aspects of TV markets out there. But at the same time, their new media aspect allows them to run their entire control room with one operator. Their entire newsroom runs with one operator. That was dreamed of back in the early 2000s by companies like Parker Vision. I know it sounds more like a board game to say Parker Vision, but yeah, Parker Vision was a technology that allowed the large control rooms of what used to be operated by a single operator. And it took 3 engineers to make it work, but it was able to be operated by one operator. Camera and editing, used to have videotape editing, used to take large amounts of space, a lot of desk space, workspace, tape space to make this happen. Now we walk around with SD cards and cloud file storage. What it takes to actually make new media, produce new media, deliver new media, everything from the footprint to the staffing has completely changed. And the groups that are embracing this are actually, I'll say, envied. At times, the traditional broadcasting industry may look at them and point and say, hey, they're not doing it the way we've always done it. And at the end of the day, ownerships, managers, executive producers are looking and saying, yeah, but you're doing it with 2 people and it takes 8 of us to make the same production. How are you accomplishing this? And I get that asked all the time. My sports grid operation operates with a single technical director, show operator. During the week of Super Bowl, leading up to Super Bowl, from the Los Angeles Convention Center using 3 different studio sets on the convention floor. We broadcast 100 hours in 5 days of live programming from that venue. Each facility was a 3-camera shot with a full layer of graphics, full functionality. The director was actually sitting in Kansas City while the hosts and staff were sitting in Los Angeles talking about Super Bowl 56. Yes, 56. Have to remember Super Bowls. I lose track of those. I've been involved with a number of Super Bowls. I've been involved with World Cups, World Series. I've worked with everyone from U.S. government, FEMA, NASA, NRO, Army, Air Force, all the way over to your ABCs, NBCs, CBSs, Fox. I've done all your live events with every broadcast network, all the sports, and at the same time have I actually refer to it as the privilege of working with smaller clients. I really do enjoy still working with the executives who look to have a broadcast quality conference room, real work and efforts in there. And at the same time, colleges such as YCP and the projects that you've got in there, both technically on the support side, but also on providing some of this communication and training as it comes to this. Craig, is it okay if I share my screen?
You are welcome to, please, sir. Yes.
Let me pull up my first of my channels here. And you're hearing Scott Farrell at the Scott Farrell Show. I've got him muted again because otherwise he'll drive us nuts. I can't listen to Scott very well. He drives, but he's a tough character to listen to.
I remember him.
So we've got a number of screen shares that are going to pop in here, and hopefully you can see the screen.
We can.
So what you're looking at here, this isn't a live operation. You are watching live television. The gentleman, Scott Farrell, who's on the show there, he's actually live at home. The producer for this show's in Kansas City. Scott's in New York. His co-host for this show, and I'm looking to see if his co-host is on this screen at the moment. I don't see a representation of him on here. His co-host, I believe, is in New York City today at one of Sports Grid studios. This is our location, not for production of this show, but for OTT distribution monitoring. So if you see the little boxes down on the bottom, and you'll actually see those same boxes up in the 9 box up above here. And I can actually expand this a little bit. I think I can. So you've got the 9 boxes here. The top 2 boxes are incoming feeds. It's a primary and a backup, so they are within reasonable time of each other. But as we start going through that, you'll notice the rest of the feeds down below are delayed, and actually the bottom 3 are frozen. I'll actually reset those while I'm in here. Operator there should have done this already, but obviously he's not paying attention. The graphic just to the left of the clock is the YouTube feed. And if you watch this long enough and you pay attention, you'll notice the YouTube feed runs about 6 to 7 seconds behind the primary feed. So our incoming feeds come in, we send it out to YouTube, and it's actually received by YouTube in that 6 to 7. I'm guessing it's actually looking at probably about 12 seconds right now. The internet's a very flexible place. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. The camera or the feed that you're looking at to the right of the clock is the same feed. It's significantly delayed. It's sitting at about 56 seconds, but you're looking at a video server out of India.
India.
We actually send it to India for distribution because it's a global feed. The feeds at the bottom that you're looking at, and it's just the receives are coming off of smart television receive channels, so they lock up from time to time. You're looking at Zumo, Roku, and what's referred to in our world as non-Roku. So all the other platforms that aren't Roku. Roku requires their own unique feed. So give me 2 seconds here, and we're gonna reset those and give us some video so you can see them.
So for the people that are sitting on Zoom today versus the people that are sitting here, just so you're clear, when the school here was transitioning over to a new editing system and new live switch technology, Carl came into the building and sat with the administration and with the other faculty and helped design the kind of tech we would be buying. So, and the agreement was to buy the production bot, which ran this very different software called vMix. And I had never seen vMix before. And it was right when I came into the department back in 19. And Carl was kind enough to sit with me and kind of teach me a little bit of the software. And I then tried my best to figure it out. And that's the software we are now currently using to do the live switching for the live switching class, which I'll see some of you even tonight. Tonight is our Wednesday night live switching class from 6:30 to 9:15, right? So this is a software that's being used every day. It's not like it's not being used every day. It's being used every single day.
And if I can add into that, Craig, you're absolutely right. This is used every day. The number one place where vMix is used, where people hear about it, is in churches. And you think, what is broadcasting in churches? And you'd be surprised how much work goes into a social broadcast community, such as a church, a conference facility, even it's your digital signage, how much work and effort goes into creating those rundowns and the large display screens that are up there, especially since COVID, as they've actually started broadcasting live at the same time. I'm looking to see really quick if I have another one of these systems online that's a quick and easy grab. Those other units with the resets are going to take a little while to reset. And I was noticing the operator was starting to grab the mouse for me, and I wasn't going to fight him over it. That's one of the challenges of remote broadcasting, is often there's another broadcaster, another user on the other end. It's no longer one person sitting in front of one computer with one mouse and keyboard. You find that it's multiple people sitting in front of multiple computers with multiple mice and keyboards. And you do have to do this little dance of who's the leader, who's the director, who's sharing the screen, who's leading the conversation. So just like in a Zoom call, even remote broadcasting becomes that very quickly. We'll go over before the ABC station here gets too involved. Let's just pop over there and see what they've got going on.
Carl, we're very much appreciative of you taking us through some of the technologies that you actually use. It's so cool to see these things. It's hard to express them to the students without having somebody that's, in the industry working every day. So I'm thankful at a very high level. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Next one's coming up here. This is actually, I left this facility just an hour ago. And they've got a live newscast coming up at 5 o'clock. About 4 o'clock, they'll get pretty busy in here. You'll notice that unlike the previous vMix platform with the icons down at the bottom, there are a lot more icons going on. I believe that this does represent all of them, but we've got a total of 51 inputs into this vMix system. By the time we layer in the graphics, the lower thirds, over the shoulders, full functionality. This program I've actually interfaced with a rundown tool called Rundown Creator. And I'll show you that on a different screen here in just a few moments. Rundown Creator allows us to, the news department, to write their scripts, to put in all of the lower third titles, over the shoulder graphic files, video clips, video folders, and Rundown Creator assembles those into a single rundown. vMix here then grabs all of that information and assembles it into a full production playlist. So it puts every graphic in order. It puts every over the shoulder stacked in order, puts all of the lower third titles in order, and then you just sequence and step through.
Oh, that's so
It
fantastic.
doesn't seem like much, but let me grab another screen really quick because this screen doesn't do much. I wish I could actually get both of these screens up at the same time. Let me see what I can come up with here.
Yeah, no problems. What you're seeing is a very, very complex library of, you can imagine a whole entire, rows and rows of books stacked high, and every book has something going on. So every one of those inserts, every one of these elements here has its own creation. So somebody has spent time creating those lower thirds, those backgrounds, or those titles, or those moving graphics, and place it and test it and make sure it's secure, and then attach it and then and make it a connection and link it and then secure it, right? So there's a very large obligation on the side of the graphic design person, the human being who's involved in being the technical director in this case. And vMix allows this to be done all by one person, really, in a lot of ways. So it's pretty crazy.
So just like Craig was saying, each one of these contains a individual slide. We've collapsed them so that you can see what, it doesn't take up as much space. We can see more of them on the screen at the same time. As we get into some of these, they don't look like much. They do a lot of functions in the background. I'm looking for number 25. 25 is actually your lower, over the shoulder lower third. It can get quite involved. Let me actually grab, I think it's 27. No, 22. There we go. 22 is quite a fun little slide.
Now, for
So
those people who
22.
don't recognize it, Carl's doing this from his truck. He's got a Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
signal
by
from
the
his
way, I
truck.
am in my truck wirelessly, just continuing to demonstrate the capabilities of new media and simply running off of a poor performing 4G connection, not 5G, not high speed, not wired, just a Verizon enabled laptop.
That's great.
But what you're seeing here is a preview screen of what they see in the studio. This lets them see what's going to be coming up next in the over the shoulder, what video file is next, what sports graphics are next, what's going on one of the monitors in the studio. And as they step through, it allows them to do that. Let me actually stop sharing. I want to try and share one more time and see if I can share the whole screen.
So Carl, where do you think most of the training is for this kind of advanced software? Is some of this training in just kind of generically available on YouTube, or did you and the people that work for you learn a lot of this by experimentation?
So there's a lot of experimentation in the development. The R&D and development side of this is all people who have worked very hard in this industry, from other industries, who really just have a feel for it, have spent time on their own time, have spent time on companies' time, learning these systems, learning them not just how to hit a few buttons, but how they work, how they program, how they interface. And we sit down and we build high-end scripts. And actually, as we're on that, I'm going to show you the screen I've got here.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can minimize this really quick. So I'm getting, my screen is floating over the top of things. On the left side here, you'll see Rundown Creator in their live script for a newscast. And on the right side, you'll see this is actually the switcher solution controlling vMix. So this is a custom control interface that's written specifically for that vMix screen that you saw earlier. You've got your microphone layers here for turning your mics on and off.
Mhm.
You've got your camera selector, and as you step through and select cameras, it'll put different cameras on the air. As we put our over-the-shoulder or full-page graphics up, they go on the air. I know you can't see them here. Same thing with lower thirds, puts lower thirds up and down. Sports scoreboards. Every function that we do here, including a new function called double box, where we take two videos and put them on the screen at the same time. I have a second page here for setting up the double box. What camera do you want on the left? What camera do you want on the right? That's something that you would set up during a commercial break leading up to the show. And then over on the primary show where you're actually working with this, double box is available down here. Select it as a source and we'll put that up. This is
It's pretty amazing. They connected that.
In general, it's a fairly standard template program that makes this, but it takes a lot of advanced programming to assemble all of the details together and make this work for a show. This is one of the concepts of a very advanced show, and what you're capable of doing at an advanced level. Let me see if I can pop out of here really quick. And I want to show you a simple show, if I can find the right studio to do it with. So we've done a lot with vMix so far. Let me show you a quick Wirecast studio.
So Carl, how does that software package compete with ENPS? Or is it like a alternate substitute opportunity? Is it an equivalation? Is it taking over the industry slowly and knocking ENPS out? I mean, what are your feelings on that? Because we use ENPS here, not well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. ENPS is fantastic. I love ENPS. I'm an iNews master user as well. But for the smaller stations, for universities that are not training to use ENPS, which you are, that's a very good thing to train and use that. But for universities, for your small broadcast operations where ENPS is either too big or too expensive, there are solutions like this that are cost effective. Imagine a conference room or a church who needs a rundown function. We need to know what graphic is coming up next. We need to know what our talking points are. What's the script for this? Rundown tools are very useful. At times, they're not much more complicated than Microsoft Excel. They're not much more complicated than just a typed up Word document with a list on here. But being able to jump between the bullet points of the list, being able to pull and add in graphic layers with this, it's very much a representation or a data representation of PowerPoint, where you're able to grab this graphic at this time, this talking point at this time, and you step through it. Live broadcasting rundowns are the core of what makes a live broadcast run smoothly, and keeps you from tripping on yourself, and at the same time getting every point that you need done.
Yeah, we've struggled over here with ENPS on a lot of levels with a lot of different instructors for a lot of different reasons, trying to figure things out, getting it to communicate properly with the teleprompter. And I was on the phone more than a few times with them. And I think next time you're in the neighborhood, you and I are going to sit down and go through some more advanced training there.
No, absolutely, and glad to do it. You know that. Really quick, and this seems like a very simple screen. There's not a whole lot going on here. But simply, Scott Farrell has another show that he does later in the day. Same individual you saw on with the live. That show was Farrell Coast to Coast. This show is Farrell on the Bench. This show uses Wirecast, running an iMac, so we're not even on a PC anymore. And simply, we're able to switch layers between him on a live camera, bring up different functions here, different slates over the top. And that's really all he does is drop back and forth between slates, live camera, which does happen to have some lower third baked into it. This is a audio driven show. And so you see there's an audio graphic mixer down below. They actually have the capability of bringing in guest callers, taking live radio and television or telephone callers. And we can bring them in via phone call, Zoom, web interface, otherwise, and we can have up to 96 callers simultaneously in the system on this. Scott rarely gets more than 3 or 4 people talking at the same time, but it's one of those talk shows where it's important to bring the community in, just listeners and viewers in on there. This show right now primarily is delivered on YouTube, but it should be connected up and going out to our OTT platforms here as of April 1st. And again, it'll be originating off of Wirecast, while his other shows are originating off of vMix. And that gets into mixing platforms and mixing shows. Just because you're working in one show right now doesn't mean that the next show has to be on the same platform, on the same technology. And that's where new media, I don't want to say shines, it's where it's so much more capable. It doesn't have the limitations that traditional media had. Traditional media, traditional control room was built to do one thing. It had one workflow, it had one configuration. And yeah, you could save a different layout or configuration in the switcher. You could make it customized for the room, but the workflow still went out to a tape machine or one video output. Your cameras came in as they were. With new media, you can switch platforms, you can switch computers, you can switch Mac, PC, Linux, iPhone, Android, back and forth almost seamlessly. It takes a lot of planning and development to make that happen, but it's certainly possible.
It's pretty
There's not a
amazing.
whole lot there's not a whole lot else to show you on this particular show. Let me see if I can actually open up a phone, because this one's just kind of fun. Yeah, I can open up the phone number here.
So Carl, this is really an amazing adventure in the different levels of technologies. I don't want the students to miss the obvious, that everything we're talking about here is being done over some form of internet connection. So we're no longer running maybe high quality cable from camera into device into an external recording unit. You might be running things through Ethernet cable, through adapters and some sort of high speed, telecommunication device that allows you to transmit wirelessly over thousands of miles and ricocheting it back within a fraction of a second to resolve the gap and to not have any delay. So, it's you lived through the legacy technology, right? And now you're in this new technology.
Yep. The legacy technologies were difficult. They had their challenges and their limitations. Putting together a live broadcast in the field was a lot more challenging, even when satellite first became in the platform in the mid 90s. And very few of you in the class today were watching live news in the mid 90s, but in the mid 90s, you would have the reporter in the studio saying, how's the weather out there? And it wasn't a 2-second delay that you see today. It was a 7-second, 10-second, 12-second delay. And they would then say, the weather here is fine. And that was an improvement over the capabilities before that. Before that, we were looking at 15, 20 seconds of delays, or we had less delay, but the costs were ridiculous in order to transport live analog style signals across the city or across the globe. And in cases across the globe, it literally was across the globe. It wasn't just a single satellite connection. It was 2 or 3 or 4 satellites, microwaves, fiber optics, high-speed data cables, tying everything together. Today is very simple. I walk over to high-end Cisco and Arista network switches, and in different locations, even some very prosumer gear such as Ubiquiti, and or even just simply your Comcast or Optimum cable modem at your home. The number of people that have transitioned home from COVID is absolutely phenomenal. I still have anchors that work at home, weather meteorologists at home, hosts doing Scott Farrell's at home today. They continue to do their shows with cameras, laptops, and transport from home. The world has really become more open to do more things faster, easier, quicker. But part of that leads on the technical aspect that we have to be ahead of the game, faster, more involved, more knowledgeable. There's less time to plan. We're constantly having to adapt and change what we're doing and how we're broadcasting. An excellent example of that. And at some point, this probably hasn't affected any of you students the way it does my broadcasters, but it does hit you from time to time. Everyone is logged into a web page, whether it's YouTube or just simply Google, and things are new. Things are different. Something has changed. The internet has updated, applied a new feature, a new graphic, a new something, and it's no longer what you were expecting. Just literally last week, my Sports Grid YouTube feed, YouTube changed its authentication platform. And the leg of their platform, which they had changed on us probably only 3 months ago. We now had to go through and redesign, reconfigure systems live on the air, or should have been live on the air. Literally that morning of, figure out how it works, figure out all of the details and functions of all the new settings, which when you log into Google's webpage in order to go and look at YouTube, YouTube's a Google product, the webpage is still showing you the old information for configuring it. Over the course of the morning setting it up, Google updated their page with the new manuals of how to set it up. But we don't have the luxury of waiting for those new manuals. We have to figure it out even ahead of having those manuals come out.
So Carl, that's an amazing adventure you're on. I've got a question for you, but I'd like to first open up the floor to the students that are here in class and on Zoom. Maybe some of you have a thought just in general regarding what's some of the discussions that have already taken place and you want to ask Carl. So is there anything that's on anybody's mind, whether they're on Zoom or in class, before I present my next question? Anybody have any thoughts? Don't raise your hand, just come off of Zoom. I can't see all of you, so just come off of Zoom and talk if you want to talk.
I have a question.
Okay, we have somebody right here in the class. Please.
Okay, so you said that you've been in the industry since 1978. And I know that you were just talking about shifting from legacy to whatever you use now. But just in general, what was it like adapting to the changes in the industry as they were happening? Like going through having the first cell phones and, you know, the block phones and phones with cars to what we have in our pockets, you know, what was that like?
It has been, for lack of a better way of putting it, the biggest challenge of my career, my biggest challenge of my life, at the same time, the most exciting roller coaster I could have asked for, the biggest ride. It has been a lot of fun. I did my first live cellular-based radio event, so just audio, not video, back in 1992. I did my first live video broadcast over cellular in 99, 2000. I launched our first live sports and news broadcast daily operation live over cellular technology in 2002. So you think about what kind of cell phone were you using in 2005? Was it as smart as what you have today? No. And you think back, yeah, my phone today is so much better than it was years ago. The number of cables. I mean, I'm actually going to take you back. This is before we had Bluetooth. There was no wireless connection to talk to a cell phone. We literally were plugging cables into cell phones. It has been a fun and exciting science experiment of cables laying all over the place, putting codes into phones that were never intended to have, working with the data providers, at the same time trying to get the data providers to do things that they didn't ever want to do. No one ever wanted people to go and do live video over cell phones. That's something that the industry realized we could do. We started doing it and pushing the industry to do it. So I think the biggest thing on the broadcast side, and that aspect of all the years, all the way through, I've always mentored a number of people. Craig, it's you know this, I have a number of people who ask me a million questions a day. And I love answering every single one of them if I've got an answer. And if I don't, I love it even more because now I've got a project to go and look up. But I was going through, I had an individual that asked me, what is it that I love about this industry? And I came back and I couldn't come up with anything I actually love about broadcasting. I know that might sound weird because you're hearing me talk about broadcasting. What I realized that I love is I love the puzzle. I love the challenge. It's not actually the broadcasting that I love. It's not getting audio and video. It's figuring out how to do something, in essence, new, something that no one's ever done before. And I get to do that every single day. And it's something as simple as down the corner in your local town, there's a television broadcaster, there's a radio station, and in the right environment, yeah, they're inventing things that have never been done before. We're doing it in a way that no one else has ever done it. We're turning it around and getting information about whether it's your elections or just simply getting music out there in a way that is new and innovative. The whole smart TV and bringing live sports. I'm sure you've started to see live sports and live events happening on your smart TVs. That's the biggest piece because smart TVs were never intended for live video. Live is really challenging to do because any little glitch in your data, you get a little pause in your cellular modem and your cable modem sitting there. The internet just gets a little glitchy for a moment. It doesn't really bother you at home. When you're watching Netflix, it has a buffer. It's already buffered in there. It can go 15, 20, 30 seconds of glitching. You'll never even know that there was a glitch. In live video, though, there's no buffer, or the buffer is very small. The bigger the buffer, the longer the delay. And if you're watching live sports, no one wants a delay. And so we're constantly working on that. My India distribution actually tonight is still at a 1 minute and 30-second delay for our distribution. The 56-second one that I'd shown you earlier is a new method that we have that cuts 40 seconds off. I wasn't able to make my 50%. My goal was to cut it in half. The industry just hasn't let me cut it fully in half, but I'm taking a minute 30 and taking it down to 56, which is still phenomenal with reducing the delays all the way between New York City to India to Mumbai, all the way back to my broadcast in my 4G of where I'm sitting at. And actually, the computer that you're seeing it delivered on there is in New Jersey. But then that gets delivered back to my laptop over Zoom, up to you in York College, and it's still probably only a minute and 10 seconds all the way around the world. So the biggest challenge in going from old media to new media, and I still experience this every single day, is that there's no room to become comfortable, to become complacent with the way it's done today, because it will change. As soon as you learn how the switcher works, how vMix works, how Wirecast works, how this internet delivery works, it will change, perhaps not tomorrow, but in the next 6 months or a year. The media, how it delivers, how it works, a new product's going to be out there. And if you are so focused on staying with what you have and not looking at where you're going, you will miss out on where you're going because it moves fast. It moves really, really fast. I think the old technology was nice because over the course of broadcasting, and actually I can use my West Virginia station that has that big giant vMix system in there. Just this last trip, I replaced a Windows XP computer at that location.
Really?
And Windows XP was released in 2001. This computer has been in operation since 2004.
Yeah.
And that's the speed of old technology adapting to all of this. Those old systems, they just keep running, they just keep working, they just keep going. And it's a slow progress. They don't change quickly. New media, because of the way it works, is prone to change, not just quickly, but potentially overnight. What we do with deliveries, and I say overnight, I want you to think about what you see at home, what you know between 2019, 2018, and 2022 with COVID in the middle, and how many people are now working at home. I was actually having a discussion with FEMA, Federal Emergency Management, on just the pandemic as a whole, and as a society, how fortunate we are that the pandemic happened when it did, because we have the technologies as a society, as a global community, to allow people to work from home, to be productive, to do our jobs, to interact, to have our media, to have our entertainment, but to do our banking, to contribute to our works, to have the Zoom calls, to have these calls like we're having right now. Because, and Craig, you know this very, very well, in 2018, it was not possible to have a Zoom call with all of your staff, with the students at home, with some in here, some there. The whole world, in a course of only 2.5 years, has almost reinvented itself. But not because it needed to reinvent. All of the equipment was there. Zoom was there. The internet was there. The cell phones were there. This isn't anything that was invented for COVID, but it was already sitting there. COVID rose up, the need for it was there. And we immediately, as an industry, as a society, as broadcasting goes myself, we adjusted to that and made that happen.
Call ended.
We made it happen very quickly, very, very quickly.
Carl, I'm so very appreciative of you explaining that. That was a really great point, really great question. I've got one I want to hang on. I want to put a hanger on, but I want to see if anybody else has a question before I lead into mine. So does anybody else have any other thoughts?
I have a question.
All right, come on.
All right. So I'm gonna preface this with if applicable, but I'm pretty sure it is very applicable. What new technology in your part of the industry, what has been the one that has been the most helpful, like since it came about, like compared to the the old technology that you used? You get what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. It's a great question. And I'm going to give it back to you in two different aspects. So as a single platform goes, and I'm going to use the word vMix, not that vMix itself has been the best one, but these single core platforms, whether it's your Wirecast or vMix or OBS, which, by the way, OBS is free. Any of you who aren't playing with it, go download OBS. It's a great tool. I don't like it for broadcasting because it doesn't have enough controls on it. And every other week they release a new version that messes it all up. But OBS is free. It's great. I love that platform. But the other piece that's really changed the world when it comes to broadcasting is a cross between two technologies. It's the same on two different levels. You're going to know, or probably will have heard of a product called NDI. N as in Nancy, D as in David, I as in Igloo, NDI. NDI is a technology developed by Newtek, who makes the TriCaster. TriCaster is one of the first single platform switching solutions out there. But they pioneered this technology that puts live video over standard Ethernet cables, standard networking. And NDI as the core for like your vMix, your Wirecasts, even Zoom calls, has become game changer. You no longer have to move video cables or even HDMI. It's just a single Ethernet cable. Your video comes in, it transports everything, and the latency, the delay factors, if designed properly, there's anything that's digital has a delay, but the delays can be very minimal. NDI, when set up properly, is about 2.5 to 3 frames, which is not bad at all. On the opposite side of that, and I do work in this industry at this side as well, is a technology called SMPTE 2110 or 2022. There's a couple different standards out there, but it's uncompressed MPEG video over IP. That we're actually getting down into the fractional frames, 0.1, 0.2 frames of delay. The quality is equally as good as it was running the cables around. There's no compression, there's no loss of quality. But the structure on that is extremely high end. Imagine an internet delivery speeds where you go and you plug a cable in. If you have 1,000 megs, the school actually has 1,000 megs, but if you get 1,000 megs of internet, 1,000 gigabit connection, that's a big connection. Simply 2110 lives on 25 gig and 100 gig fiber connections. And each one of those connections is one signal of video. So if I have, I did a project for Bally Sports, it used to be RSN, but we built a new facility for them in Atlanta. They brought in 115 sports broadcasts into their mass distribution. They did it all over IP, brought all these video feeds in. And their back end wasn't in the 100 gig connection. It wasn't in the 1,000 gig connection. They were 40,000 gigs of data bandwidth. Now, how much internet did they need for that? They were only living in the 2,000 to 3,000 megs of internet. But it's still a massive internet connection. But the live switching on the backside, the NDI connections, digital connections, or your simply 2110 connections have been the biggest changes to that as the forward facing. The piece I think that everyone might get to might be your smart TVs or your cell phone distribution, all of those. For me as a broadcaster, as an engineer, I just see them as a new method of distribution. It really, for me, doesn't change any of the any of what I do. It didn't bring me anything per se new. It didn't make it better. It didn't make it worse. It just changed it. There's a lot of things that may look to be game changers, but when it comes to how it's viewed from the inside technical, may only be a change for the sake of change. It's 2022's car versus 2020's car. It's a car. It has four wheels. It has a steering wheel. You get in, close the door, put a seatbelt on. Nothing really new. Yep, it is a new car. It does have some new things. Gets a little bit of gas mileage, but it's not as game changing as it is in essence going from a gas powered car to a electric vehicle. I would take that from going from your SDI cabling on the consumer side, your HDMI, to going with this NDI 2110 platforms. That's completely revolutionary.
It looks like I know what our next switch has to be, right, Carl?
I was going to say, right now in your vMix platform, vMix handles NDI natively. Nothing you have to do to that.
Yeah, we have to figure that out. That's good. It's another one of the main things. I've got one last question for Carl. We're running in the last few minutes, and I'm thankful for his time, and you got to be respectful for somebody's time. Did anybody have any last questions for Carl before I ask him my last wrap up? That's fine. If you come up with a question that would help end the discussion today better than this one, I'm happy to let you present it. Carl, I basically would like to ask you a question relating to how people dealt with the transitions of technology. Meaning, as an old head like you and I are, and you're transitioning through technology and you ride the wave to the next technology and you ride the wave to the next one, you know, I will respectfully tell you that you've got a very, very high IQ. You and I have had time to spend together. You're a very, very, very intelligent guy, and things technologically don't necessarily come easy to you, but you have a tech brain. So what's happened to some people that are in the industry that aren't quite as technologically adaptable as you are, and the technology around them is shifting and twisting, and they're not able to keep up on the curve? What's been happening to some of those people?
So I'm going to take it back several years, back to the year 2005, 2008. When digital TV came out. Previously it had been analog. We lost upwards of 40% of the engineering force that was out there, engineers that had gone back from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, a legacy and a plethora of knowledge and information, partly because while they had kept up with the technology, this change from analog to digital was so great of a change. They had already been in their careers for 25 to 40 years. They decided to opt out and not learn the new technology, to not transition with that next wave. We continue to see that happening in today's world as we transition in the world of television from ATSC 1.0 to ATSC 3.0, as we transition from over-the-air radio and television with antennas to not just cable, but this new OTT YouTube distribution, where the engineers just, they've lost it's not that they've lost the enjoyment of it being fun, but it's a lot of work to keep up with this. Learning always requires effort. Doesn't matter whether it seems to come easy or not. My wife will tell you the number of books and manuals I spend reading. That's my bedtime information. I learn and research and do all this, not because I'm driven to do it. I just happen to love technology. If I had a hobby, my wife tells me I should have a hobby, and my answer is I have one. It's broadcasting. It's what I do. That is my hobby. And so I have the advantage that I work in an industry that I consider my hobby. But it does take work to keep up with this, to learn the new process, to learn the new software. Most of you are probably going to be touching some Adobe products over your time here at York. Imagine every year there's going to be a new Adobe platform out there. Whether it's Premiere or Photoshop, there's a new release. I can't honestly even tell you what the release is today because I haven't kept track of it in the last 2 or 3 years. There's always a new release. There's always a new tool. There's always a new function. And as long as you stay on the front side of that, you're going to do great. It's when it starts wearing on you and keeping up with it becomes challenging. You have to figure out how to reinvent yourself, how to re-engage. And that will hit you at numerous times through your career, for personal reasons, for professional reasons. But as we continue on into this OTT world, this new media world, we are again continuing to see engineers who have put in their 30 years plus opting to not adapt to this new IP distribution and phase out with the older technology. On the technical side, there is a shortage of technical people. If any of you have skill set or interested in the technical side, Craig, make sure they get in touch with me.
Sure. Carl and I have talked several times about what it means for somebody in my particular position, and I'm happy to be a conduit to know students who really like the tech, who are the ones who sit in front of the computers, or the ones who go back and route cables, or the ones who are interested in the software and are doing beyond the little bit of homework assignment, but really want to learn the software packages and understand the whys. Those people Carl wants to talk to, because he knows that they would take to his industry. His industry is different than mine, of course, right? God bless his heart, he's a broadcast television engineer, full time. And so with that said, he struggles to find competent, high quality, engineering people. You don't have to go to school for IT to learn what he's talking about, but you certainly have to want to know more about what we're doing. It can't just be pushing the go button on the camera and put it in auto. You have to know why manual makes some sense. And so if you are interested, as you continue forward, you tell me, and I'll make a decision alongside you. How would we contact Carl? What does that mean? Because there are opportunities, even down where he's at in West Virginia. There's opportunities right now, and they struggle to find very good people.
And I'm going to plug not any of my clients, but just simply as a career and what you're looking at doing, a photographer, a reporter, a graphics producer who knows how to set up a camera, who knows how to plug things in and knows how to work a little bit of the software is more valuable to everyone than one who doesn't. It doesn't mean that you need to make a career out of the technical, but learning the technical, I suggest it to anyone who has any enjoyment out of it. If it's painful for you, don't do it. Don't go through the pain of doing technical. But if you enjoy it at all, get involved in the technical, because it will make you better. It also opens up doors that you wouldn't know otherwise. And I'm going to give you, this is my last story here. I'm going to give you 2 of my I don't want to say proteges. I don't have any proteges, but people I've had the pleasure of giving some opportunities for, hiring them in, training them with some skills. I've got Jeff Hauser, who is a senior technical director with NASCAR out of Charlotte. I hired Jeff and Carlos in on the same week as a mass control operator, just sitting watching television, waiting for commercials to play. And when commercials played, they hit one button. Doesn't seem like a tough job. You sit there and wait and wait and wait. And when the screen does a specific thing, you hit one button and then you wait another 15 minutes. It's a very simple job, but it got them into broadcasting. Jeff took it and went technical. He continued on with that, learning wiring, learning cabling, and now works with NASCAR. Carlos took a different approach, took a different opportunity, having gotten into the industry with that. Carlos moved over into doing sports reporting. He then moved into weekend anchoring, into primetime anchoring, and right up until, I haven't actually talked with him since, I need to connect with him, since the late 2019. So I haven't found out what he's doing since COVID. But in 2019, Carlos was the 11 o'clock anchor for Telemundo Miami. He transitioned up to being a national name in a top 5 market at the #1 newscast. All that from entering in the broadcasting industry as a mass control technical operator. He took that opportunity and turned it into something. The opportunities might present themselves to let you in the door at some point. Once you're in those doors, though, it's on you to step up, put the effort in, figure out what you want to do, and take that opportunity and turn it into something.
Amen to that.
But yeah, Craig, at any point, any of your staff have those questions, if it's something that I can answer on a technical level, provide some advice on a career path, on a career choice, or otherwise, I'm glad to be a resource for you over your students' time there at York.
And we're very appreciative, Carl, certainly, and I acknowledge that. And Carl knows I want to thank him as well on a personal level for all the opportunities he's personally presented to me. Once again, Carl, I do appreciate you.
Craig, thank you. And thank you to all of your class. Thank you for coming out. Not looking forward to driving your way. I said, I'm heading up to Harrisburg tonight. I get to drive through that weather that you guys have been dealing with all day. So
Let's thank Carl by giving Carl a big round of applause, everybody. Once again, Carl, I can't thank you enough for spending the time with us. It's impossible to commit somebody like Carl. We could have never paid him for his time. What you got today was a wonderful presentation. That was something I've been struggling for a long time, hoping I could secure him. And your visit today, Carl, was very special for us here at YCP. Any college in the whole entire United States would be jealous of having what just happened here today. So thank you so very much for your time. I'm thankful. And what we'll do is you can log out when you want to, Carl, and then I'll stop the recording, and then I'll talk to the class. I have a few things to say to them. And I'm thankful. Anybody else have any last things for Carl? If not, we're going to say thank you.
thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Carl, thanks, man. I owe you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Dinner's on me. All right, let me stop the recording. Hold on a second.